Hello, welcome to the second episode of the PowerShell Jumpstart series. This time we will look into variables. Variables are used for storing data for later use within your session or within your script. They begin with $, and there are multiple types of variables. There are text strings, integers, decimals, arrays, among many others. For now, we won't go too in-depth in this subject, because we will learn this along the way, and we will also explore this subject more in-depth in another series. Right now, the important thing I want you to remember is that you can store the result from a command, you can store text, numbers, or whatever you need. Okay, so this time instead of just regular PowerShell, we will use the PowerShell ISE editor. You can use Visual Studio or Notepad++ or whichever editor you like. For now, I will use ISE. Okay, so first thing, as we did with the other shell, we'll make sure this runs as admin every time. So it is, that's good. And we will pin this to the taskbar. Okay, now this is a script pane. You might not see this right away. If you don't see it, just click on view and check show script pane. Okay, so this will allow you to type in a bunch of text and run it afterwards. Comes in handy. So let's look at the simple variables first. Right now, we will create a text variable. I will name this text variable 1. You can name this whatever you like. There are some system reserved variables that already have some content, but don't worry about them right now. We'll look into those later. Right now, just use whatever name you like. Text variable 1, and I will call this, I will store here, this is some text. I will create a second variable, which I will name text variable 2. Some text, and this is more text. Okay, so I will click here. This will run everything on the script pane. And if I wanted to run just part of it, like just the second line, you can click on the selection and run selection right here. We'll run everything right now. Okay, so what this did was to store this text inside this variable and this text inside this variable. So if I call it within my script pane, my shell, it will show the contents. So text variable 1 shows this is some text, and number 2 will show, and this is more text. All right, so you can concatenate or put together this text with the +sign operator. You will see a lot of examples that do this. So I will use text variable plus text variable 2, and it will add it together. The rightish or better way to do it is to just grab everything in quotes. So text, there's no wrong way really, but this is the preferred way. So I will just use quotes, then text variable 1, and text variable 2. Now we'll get a double space, but I am adding a space here so you can see both variables. You see, this is some text and this is more text. It actually added them together. Now, if I get rid of that space, it's taken care of already. Okay, so now that we have that done, I will show you that you can also use store numbers within these variables. So let's go ahead and create another variable named number 1, which will equal 1, and number 2 that equals 2. This time I will run the selection. And I will follow the same example as before. So what happens if I just go ahead and try to add them up with the operator there? 1, 2. So it actually grabbed this as a string of text right? So if I wanted to add them up like in the arithmetic way, as if they were numbers, I'll have to tell PowerShell these are integers. This goes along the same lines as other programming languages, right? So this time I will store them as integers, and I will run the same thing, and it will tell you that 2 plus 1 is 3. So that's correct last time I checked. Okay, so now that we have numbers out of the way, you can also store, for example, directory paths from Windows. So let's call this some path. So some path equals ctemp. Now notice I've been using double quotes. You could also use single quotes for this, but I will go into the differences and when you should be using one or the other later on. For now, just use double quotes. You're safe. So some path from that. So if I call in the some path variable, it will tell me it's ctemp. Now I can actually change the directory and use that variable. c/temp. Oops, sorry, I meant some path. So change directory to some path, and it changed me to ctemp. All right, you can also store the results from commandlets and functions. So test connection. I will run a commandlet named test connection. What it does is simplified, it pings multiple devices. I mean, one or more devices, as depends on how you use it. So test connection, I will do a test connection to google.com, and it will store the results within this variable. So it's running and it's waiting for it to complete, and it's done. So if I call the variable test connection, it will display the result from this commandlet. Okay, so let's go and look now at built-in variables. We'll look at just one of them to set an example. The most common would be PS version table. What this system variable does is tell you display the details about the PowerShell version that is running on your current session. So if I go ahead and run this, it will display my PowerShell version, the edition, the build, and all that information. One nice thing about this built-in variable is that you can actually call the properties from within this variable. So if I wanted to know the PS version only, I could just type in the dot, and it will give me all the properties and methods it has stored. So I want the PS version only. All right, so that's an example of a built-in variable. Next, we will look at the environment variables. They are easy to spot because they have the $env column ahead of them. So every time you see this, that's an environment variable. All right, so you can get a list of them by using getChildItem. And as if it were a directory. So this way you can get all the environment variables available in the system. Okay, so let's look at a few of those. For example, computer name will show the computer name. So that's the name of my machine. So if I wanted to use, I'll do it from the console this time. Username. I'll get my username. So that's roughly the same as using hostname or who am I. So these are the equivalents here in PowerShell. Just one last to set another example would be user domain, and it will tell you the domain where we are. Where the domain that our user belongs to, and that belongs to the Astrolabs domain. Okay, so for now that's all I have for variables. Next time we would look at some commandlets, and that's it for now.